This is the Canon AE-1, and for the last 10 years it went from being a popular to a mythical camera. But is it as good as people say, or is it just an overrated and overpriced piece of equipment? Let's find out.
The surprisingly affordable Canon AE-1, so advanced, it's simple.
Back in 1976, when this camera was released, it was an immediate success. Canon literally sold millions of these over 8 years, which is a lot for a camera even back then. The reasons for its success were its affordability, the high quality of the camera, and the ease of use, thanks to the aperture priority automatic mode. Just set the aperture ring on A, select the shutter speed, and the camera will adjust the aperture all by itself to achieve good exposure. Pretty easy and pretty convenient, helping the everyday man to achieve good exposure on a camera without having to learn how to use a camera. And plus, all these features and the shutter and everything were microprocessor controlled. It may not sound like much today, but in 1976, computers were science fiction, so it was pretty advanced for its time. What was not advanced is the manual mode. How to use this camera in manual mode? Well, you simply have to disengage the aperture ring from the A position and the camera works in manual mode. But there's a catch. This is how it works on an Olympus OM1. It's just about centering the needle to achieve good exposure. On a Nikon FE it's slightly different, you just have to superpose these two needles to get a good exposure. On the Canon AE-1 it gives you the recommended aperture, but not the one actually in use. That doesn't make it easy to use it in manual mode. Just watch. Oh dear! There's a deer! Let's take a picture of it in manual mode. Okay, so I need to use an aperture of 8. I'm gonna set the aperture to 8 and it's gone. Thank you, manual mode. Thank you, Canon AE-1. You are losing some precious time. It's like Canon never really intended the AE-1 user to use it in manual mode, but preferred the automatic exposure. Thank God you can use it in manual mode with top-down metering. But come on, what is this? 1965? The shutter is electronically controlled from 1/1000 with a sync speed at 1/60, which will prevent you some fill flash in broad daylight. But anyways, the flash is not TTL, but back then TTL flash on a camera was more the exception than the rule, so that's not really a problem. The viewfinder is so bright, so big and so clear that even today's DSLRs cannot compete with this camera. I mean, it's just an awesome finder. The camera doesn't use a mercury battery that is not being sold, but instead it uses this PX28 or 4LR44, which is still readily available and it lasts a long time on this camera, so that's even a plus. On the left side of the camera you have the depth of field preview and these two unlabeled buttons. They are a little bit confusing. The bottom one turns on the light meter, which is redundant with the shutter button, and the top one is a backlight compensation. It literally overexposes your shot to compensate for backlighting. On top of that you have the PC Sync connector for studio flashes or coded flashes. The camera is pretty simple. That's all there is to know about the features. Obviously, the quality of the camera, it uses Canon FD lenses and there's nothing to complain about here. And that's basically everything there is to say about the features on this camera. It's pretty simple, therefore easy to use. But now let's be serious for a moment. You see, this camera, like 15 years ago, was pretty affordable even as a second-hand market. You could easily get one for like 50 bucks. Nowadays, with all these YouTubers and bloggers talking about how marvelous it is, the camera has seen its price being jacked up a lot. I mean, a camera like this with the standard 1.8 lens will cost you around 200 bucks on the second-hand market, and that's the lowest price you would expect. It's not only a camera, it's just a collector's. If you are, let's say, a photography student and your teacher tells you to get a camera to use in manual mode exclusively, I would recommend something else. I mean, there's plenty of other cameras that sell for, well, roughly the same amount of money and that are better in some aspects. But that being said, I love this camera. I mean, look at it. It's looking good, it's cool, it's easy to use, it's convenient, it's well built. I mean, if you are looking for a camera to use for film photography, you want to get a Canon AE-1, well, go for it. You won't regret it. But you have to know that these things are somehow a little bit overpriced. So, overhyped camera? Not really. Overpriced? Just a little. But this is how it goes today. The Canon AE-1, mythical, but slightly overpriced. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time. Be seeing you guys. Oh, and by the way, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like and a comment down below and yada yada yada. You know the drill. Goodbye.